Hello, welcome back to Brand Sushi LIVENODING. In this episode, I want to do like a breakdown of this sushi place that I created yesterday. So it's basically some kind of sushi train joint with, maybe like a secret society with squid eating sushi. Yeah, like some kind of fish roll type of sushi. Anyway, let's take a look. Let's see if I can break this down. First of all, okay, the one that's actually the most interesting that I want to show you is this running kind of like a belt, like a on Sushi Train, conveyor belt, right? So there's a hidden sushi plate, and also there's this conveyor thing that I want to show you. First of all, okay, how is this possible? The setup of this using geometry nodes is actually quite interesting. I found it might be slightly intimidating, but let's take a look. You can see like some sushi plates kind of rotating, kind of looping, and also there's the conveyor belt. Same idea with this cone. So from the last bit, the one that's actually really doing the job is this sample curve. I think the way it works is if you can imagine like a path. They are cyclic, and then okay, the path should have some kind of vector. And because geometry nodes actually behave more like a field, you can sample the curve, and then based on these directions, you can kind of make it like from 0 to 1, so across the curve. Yeah, that's why there's this vector coming in, and there's a okay, let's see. Yeah, I think it works based on this number, right? The integer. I got help from some Blender artists on Twitter. I'll mention it in the comments in the video info. So but anyway, this node does the job, and it set up the position for our instance object. So it's currently, this animation is being controlled by the scene time as well. So it's like objects along paths. As long the objects is like a single type of instance, this is possible. Okay, let's see. Okay, we have the curve, right? And then we resample the curve using the number of counts we specify over here. This curve itself, okay, it's set to radius 0. So it's like 0 out. If I actually change this value, it's gonna do like a really weird wobble. If you imagine like the field is affecting the position, I think that's what's happening. But that should be 0. And then we resample the curve anyway. And we're gonna set up the position of the instance over here using the sample curve. The actual shape of the curve itself in this case is a mesh circle that's being affected by noise. Actually, I don't need to do this. I can just use like a mesh or like a curve circle, for example. If I just plug this in, so now it should rotate along the circle. Or if I use like whoops, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Let's see, let's reload. If I'm using like a rectangular, what is this called? Curve primitive quadrilateral rectangle. So if this is like a sushi conveyor belt, it's just gonna work. Okay, so this is the one that's doing the job, while this one on the top is resembling the original curve. And the cone is the thing that we are instancing on top of the path. It's simply just gonna work thanks to this vector that's coming from here. So based on the number of the instance index value coming from 0 to maximum of this value, normalized to 0 to 1, and then with scene time added, and then with the modulo, I think modulo is, so it's kind of resetting the time. It's offsetting the instance positions, and yeah, so it's always gonna go from 0 to 1. It's it's really complicated on that area, but anyway, the rest is just pretty simple. You just apply it on this conveyor belt. I'm gonna try to explain this part as well. Conveyor belt, okay, similar ideas. So we have this index modulo thing happening, and we have this quadrilateral things going on. Okay, so I can change the conveyor belt whatever I like for the sushi plate. I think I resample. Actually, I don't need to resample it here. I can just pass it there. Somehow I resample it. It does change the look a little bit. Oh well, that's okay. And it plugs into the translate instances, so it's translating. And here at the same time we are using the tangent to align the, because without this it's just gonna do it that way. With the rotate instances it's gonna bend across the path, so that's also interesting. And then I tilt it slightly, right? So, and I set the material in this case, put either, so there's the sushi part, sushi plate, and this thing, it's the same thing like the one I showed you earlier. The instance itself is this shape, the shapes for the conveyor belt. It's pretty simple, just quadrilateral rectangle with fillet. So it has nice round edges, I mean nice round corner. Fill the curve, extrude it, transform it, and rotate it slightly. Yeah, that's for the instance, and everything else is pretty much explained. Now the sushi actually have different speed. I can change the number of sushi. Okay, sometimes the funny thing is that when it's rotating, sometimes it's like rotating the other way around, but I don't know why, but sometimes it's just like looks correct. You can control it using scene time and divide. Same idea, exactly the same. We don't need to align it. We can just delete this. What's happening here, we have the sushi roll plate. Okay, the sushi roll plate itself, it's this guy over here, which has its own geometry nodes. It's basically just a cylinder that's being extruded, but the top part has some instance of this icosphere that looks like a fish roll. Okay, so it's you can take a look at the nodes. All of this that I'm showing you is pretty much, I guess, pretty much basic. It's not complicated. You just need to take some time, and then you understand the nodes, and then you try to use it and set it up the way you want it. I think for low poly modeling, or for something simple and rough, this works. But you can also make it like really detailed even though it's can be slightly more complicated. Okay, this mushroom egg, okay, UFO thing is created simply by using this mushroom setup that I show you in the previous live noding. It's basically just extrusion, right? It's just extrusion with control for the scale. Again, another extrusions. This is useful to create kind of like a mushroom shape. But I saw this mushroom egg the other day and I thought this looks kind of funny. It looks like UFO as well. Yeah, maybe we can just use that as a decoration. And then we have this alien. Oh, by the way, this egg UFO is using different material. So whenever you do extrusions, you can actually set material based on the selection. Set material based on selection. So you can have different material for each extrusion. So that's kind of neat. I'm using the same setup to create these aliens, squid aliens. So the same setup just looks slightly more complicated because I have the bottom part, which is the leg. I just extrude the leg. I just offset it so I can make it longer or shorter. It has the grid 5x5, which kind of I should have plugged the same thing. So it has less leg now. I don't know, I think it's kind of cute. Could be like a chair as well, so someone can sit on it. Yeah, but I think the whole thing's, I did create this blend for a few hours, maybe an hour or less or more. So you can see here, the top part is simply just like the mushroom. Is extruding it, and then but the bottom part is because I flip the face and then extrude it down, and then I merge everything, so it's back to the single surface. And then at some point I also join geometry and merge by distance. Without merge, it's gonna be separate objects, but I think you can't really see it, or you can see it that down there. Not really visible anyway. So the top part is just like the mushroom with some extrusion. I extrude it again, so it's looking kind of like alien looking, like a really weird bubbly looking. And each one of them has this glowing material. But that should explain the whole setup. It's really quite simple and interesting, but I think this is by far the most complicated geometry node setup that I created. So it's all procedural. I mean, this one seems complicated, but it's not really. Just, you know, mostly just extrusion, and then just instancing, same thing. Just the conveyor belt is slightly more complicated and interesting. This is almost like you are making field, like a particle simulation, just using a little bit of math, and we are resampling the curve. I think this node is quite powerful. I don't know 100% what this actually does, but you can sample a curve position, I think, based on this factor. There's a length and there's a factor. There's a lot of things in geometry nodes that seems like very cryptic, but if you know how to use it, then it's not a problem. You simply apply it. It's just, that's the main point of procedural. You know the functions, and then you just use it. Sometimes you don't know the mechanics or the math behind it, but you can just simply reuse it. Especially with geometry nodes in Blender 3.1 and up, you can actually turn this into an asset and reuse it. Alright, so hopefully you find this useful. And thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.